Representative Jurgens, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well,
Representative Jurgens, I'm going to move your House File 55 before us on the table with the intention of being placed on the general registry. Representative Jurgens, go ahead and proceed with your bill.
Madam Chair, we also have a DE2 amendment.
Would you like to take care of the amendment first?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Representative Jurgens. I'll move your DE2 amendment. Would you like to explain your amendment, please?
Thank you. And hopefully the third time is the charm. I've been working on this bill for several years. That is not uncommon in this House of Representatives. Similar language was passed in this committee and off the House floor as part of the omnibus education bill that unfortunately was vetoed by Governor Dayton in 2017 or 18. Last year, the similar language passed off the floor and somehow got lost in conference committee. So here we are again today. We've been working during the interim. I want to thank Jessica Webster and the School Board Association for participating and helping get this language where hopefully we have, as we say in this place, peace in the valley. What this bill does, it's the school lunch shaming bill. Too often we hear in the news of incidents where a student gets to the lunch line and it's determined that they have a negative balance in their lunch account and their lunch is taken away and thrown in the garbage. And while that practice is already not legal, it happens too often. And so what we've been doing is working on language that offers more specificity to the law, and so that we can work to prevent that from ever happening to a child again. Specifically, what this bill with the DE2 amendment would do, it would provide or require school districts to post a school lunch policy on their website and where parents can see it that lays out how they intend to collect the school debt, what formats they use, and going further than that, what it does is it requires the school districts to offer the meals in a respectful manner, not to intentionally stigmatize the child for having a negative balance on their lunch account. Basically what this does is it brings that transaction where it should be between the adults and let the kids just be kids and eat their lunch. So with that, Madam Chair, I do have some testifiers that I think would like to speak on this.
Okay, Representative Jurgens, let's adopt your DE2 amendment first. So members, I move the DE2 amendment to House File 55. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Representative Jurgens, go ahead with your testifiers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe Jessica Webster's first.
Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. My name is Jessica Webster. I'm a staff attorney with Legal Aid, and I just want to thank Representative Jurgens for sticking with us on this multi-year bipartisan fight. So we really appreciate it. We hope that this ends lunch shaming. Legal Aid has been at this for about 10 years, and we hope that this ends this chapter. And we know that while this may end lunch shaming, we don't pretend that this ends rising meal debt. And we're sensitive to the schools that are dealing with that. And, you know, our answer to that is that we are cutting off families from free and reduced lunches at about $36,000. So a working parent with 2 children at $36,000 may have a $100 a month lunch bill. And that's why we're seeing lunch shaming and rising lunch debt, is that we have families who are struggling and we have debts that are rising. And this is kind of the first step that we need to take, but we hope to have future conversations about taking that next step. The 2 things that we're really excited about in this particular bill, the language has changed a little bit through some compromise and peace in the valley, but 2 things that we're excited about is this does give MDE the opportunity to work with school districts on some best practices when they have used this type of practice, the lunch shaming practice. And it also, we appreciate that the Minnesota School Board Association has recognized that there may be some need for training among lunchroom staff and third-party vendors. And so this recognizes that need and acknowledges that need for training, and we appreciate that. So thank you very much for your time. There's other testifiers, so I'll cut my time short.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Colleen Moriarty, and I'm the Executive Director of Hunger Solutions Minnesota. Hunger Solutions Minnesota has been working with legal aid since 2008 when this first discussion came forward. In 2014, we saw a law passed by Governor Dayton, at Governor Dayton's support, that really started to deal with the lunch shaming issue. Despite the fact that many people felt that that took care of it, it obviously didn't. In 2017, we saw another incident in Stewartville. And in 2019, we saw another incident in Richfield. Those are not isolated incidences, unfortunately. The simple case was the law was not being enforced. Perhaps the appropriate training wasn't available, but we really needed to come forward once again and have some final clarification and real consequences for having this kind of harassment happen to children in schools. This really isn't appropriate for a GoFundMe page. It really isn't the answer to this. The answer to 60 to 70% of the children not being able to, or families being able to afford school lunch is not a GoFundMe page. It's a fact that we need to recognize that we need to look at the ratio of poverty that's being addressed and really move towards universal meals in the state of Minnesota so that every child has the proper nutrition and they're able to learn. I simply believe that this is not a matter of ill will. It's just a matter of not being able to afford to eat in school, and we can't allow that to continue to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michelle Kofa, and I'm the policy manager at Ed Allies. I'm here before you in support of HF 55, which would do 4 things. 1, require participants of the National School Lunch Program to adopt, post, and implement lunch policies. 2, prohibit participants from denying school lunch to students who qualify for free or reduced lunch despite outstanding balances. 3, require participants to provide meals to participating students in a respectful manner. And lastly, require the commissioner to hold schools accountable for not providing meals to students in a respectful manner. According to a 2014 report from the United States Department of Agriculture, nearly half of all districts use some form of shaming students to compel parents to pay outstanding lunch debt. The state of Minnesota is no different. News stories across the state show schools stigmatizing, demeaning, and shaming students for outstanding lunch debt. We believe that HF 55 will put necessary measures into place to maintain the dignity of all of our students as they seek the basic human need of food. In order to prevent practices that shame students for lunch debt, we believe that the communication of student lunch debt should remain between adults. Lines 1.7 and 1.8 in HF 55 requires all communication of student meal debt to be delivered to a student's parent or guardian and not directly to the student. With this provision, students should not be the recipients of any shameful practices to communicate outstanding lunch balances. It's a little past lunchtime right now in most of our schools, and many of us can remember school lunch as being a time to build community with peers. Practices that shame students do the opposite of this. Students are left feeling isolated from their school communities. As adults, we must protect students from shameful practices by keeping them out of the communication of outstanding lunch balances. All students deserve to be treated with dignity and respect despite their ability to afford a school lunch. To ensure this, we must keep the issue between adults and not shame, demean, or stigmatize our students. Thank you to the committee for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kofa. Sorry.
Kofa.
Kofa, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kofa. Now we have Denise Dittrich. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Denise Dittrich, and I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota School Boards Association. And today I will speak on behalf of the Minnesota School Boards Association as well as the other usual ed organizations present here in the room. And so we would like to thank Representative Juergens for bringing forth the DE2. The DE2 amendment is the result of several discussions with bill authors, legal aid, and Hunger Solutions. In all of these discussions, the one principle that we all agreed on is that debt collections and communications should be between adults. This amendment reflects that in Section 5. The other principle that we all agreed on is that every school district should have a policy, which most of our school districts do have policies, that should have a policy, and that the personnel, staff, need to be trained on that policy. and this amendment achieves that also in Section 9 of the DE2. So with that in mind, MSBA would like to point out that the language in the DE2 amendment is really an exception to the rule. In that spirit, we say thank you to the school nutrition services staff across the state. And after gathering the most recent 2017-18 data, we see that our school nutrition staff serve 581,582 student lunches each day, 220,350 breakfasts each day, for a total of 801,932 meals per day without incident. As a rule, they do an excellent job, and we want to make sure that they feel appreciated for that. So we hope this approach is proactive, effective, and respectful to students and the school nutrition staff. With that, I will conclude my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Dittrich. And I just want to say thank you for the work and coming to the table, and for all of the stakeholders' work on this. I think it's the start of a beautiful friendship, and I know we will continue to work together. So, Representative Jurgens, do you mind if we move to questions, or did you have a quick comment before we do?
I'm ready for questions.
Members, we have the bill before us. Any questions? No, and I forgot to ask if there's any further testifiers in the audience. I don't think so. Wonderful. Representative Jurgens, quick closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I believe it was Colleen Moriarty just said, that we started this back in 2014. That was prior to me being in the legislature. So I want to thank Representative Sarah Anderson, who worked on this bill at that time and started this, and actually worked with me initially to help get this started. I told her that this was something that was important to me. And, you know, she asked if there was a personal reason for it. And really the answer is that it should be personal for all of us. It's not personal to me in having a family member that had necessarily gone through this. But I heard from family members. I heard from parents and grandparents that reached out to me every time that this topic came up. Because of this bill, you know, newspapers or TV would call me for comment, and after that, I would get the calls and I would get the emails from parents and grandparents. And, you know, we like to think that this was isolated, and what I learned is that it was not isolated enough. I was doing this for the second grade girl whose brother purchased some a la carte items when he wasn't supposed to, but that put the family's account in the negative, and she was denied a school lunch. I'm doing this for the fifth grade boy with autism who, because his lunch account was negative and his lunch was taken away and thrown in the garbage, he refuses to eat hot lunch and has to take his own sandwich every day because he doesn't want to go through that again. That's why I'm doing this, and I would appreciate your support today.
Thank you, Representative Jurgens. The chair renews the motion that House File 55 as amended be placed on the general registry. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion prevails. House File 55 as amended is recommended for placement and on the general register.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.